lands. I don't think he currently has a way to put the Shriekmaw in the graveyard because Bailey doesn't play a lot of creatures. Bailey also has Damnation, which is a great answer to this deck. So, Will starts things off with a Black Cleave Cliffs and a pass of the turn. There was, I believe, a Monstrous Carabid in his hand. Bailey will start it off here with a Polluted Delta and a pass of the turn. Will is going to get up from the table for a second. Might have a question for the judge about a card in his hand, and he wants to ask it away from the table. End of turn, he is going to cycle away the Monstrous Carabid to draw a card, and then he'll take his turn. So as it'll warn you now, this isn't a deck that is common in what it's doing. So you might get a little bit lost with this deck, and it's kind of hard to explain it all. So there is Will falling to 18 with that Blood Crypt. So there is a Shriekmaw. This is Shriekmaw here. So when it enters the battlefield, destroy target non-artifact, non-black creature. You can evoke it for 1 and a black. It doesn't need a target, so you can just evoke it, put into play a 3/2 that dies instantly, and then you're not worried about it. Bailey on the end step is sacrificing this Polluted Delta. He's going to find a Water Grave. Actually, no, we have better idea. I'll call Bailey's deck 4-color As Foretold, because that is one of the main cards in his deck, As Foretold. So goes and grabs a Watery Grave. It did come into play tapped, so he's only at 19. He'll start his next turn. Here's a Shambling Vent and a pass back to Will. Will picks up a Violent Outburst. That is good. That's going to let him go for the Cascade on the end step of Bailey if he wants instead. He's going to shock into play a Stomping Ground. Wow, Bailey has in hand Stubborn Denial, Path, and Damnation. Yeah, Bailey's hand is gross for this matchup. Holy. Stubborn Denial, why is that in his deck? Like, he's just playing Force Spike. So Will on, I believe, the draw step is going to try to Beast Within the Watery Grave. Bailey does have a counter spell for this if he'd like. He could Stubborn Annihilate if he wants to. I don't know if he wants to. He's thinking. Looks like he's going to let it resolve. So he'll get a 3/3 beast. That's fair, I guess. But I mean, then it's... I mean, if that's your concern, you're never really in a good spot to play it anyways. Bailey plays a Flooded Strain and just passes the turn back to Will. Like, you can't be worried about that at one point, but not for the not at other points. Or like you're playing it because you want to catch spells. I don't know. Will untaps, plays. I believe that was the Bloodstained Mire. It might have been a Graven Cairns though. There are cards like that, yes. I can't think of any off the top of my head that are just affect the opponent's creatures. There's ones that affect all creatures, like Anger of the Gods or Sweltering Suns, but not specifically that I can think of that affect only your opponent's creatures. So, okay, so Bailey is sacrificing this Flooded Strand. Will is going to respond by casting Violent Outburst. Okay, so this is going to get back Monstrous Carapid, Fairy Macabre, and Shriekmaw. Bailey, of course, loses the Beast. Not a big surprise. Will doesn't mind giving you a Beast, so take it away at the same time. Yeah, that's definitely something to think about. He could have pathed away the Beast, but I think you want to save the path. I mean, you're not going to necessarily die this next turn. I think you're fine saving the path for an actual threat. Okay. Bailey will untap, take his turn here. His draw was, I believe, a Polluted Delta, so he'll have that third land. So he is now going to be one turn away from Damnation. Now, Damnation is good, but it's not great because Will just plays the second Cascade spell, and we're back to the same part again. Will has drawn one of his copies of Living End. The deck only typically plays 3. So that one is going to be relegated to being cast the hard way. Managed to like 20 zombies. Liliana, I don't know how to call in English. And it was really hilarious when your opponent have negative 50 health back. Yeah. Yeah, there are cards like that, but typically board wipes are symmetrical, so they affect both sides of the field. They're not typically one-sided. Bailey with just a swamp. Will here going to attacks. There's a path to exile on your Monstrous Carapid. It is exile. That's very important, of course. Will is going to go ahead and grab a basic land out of his deck. He'll grab a basic forest. He's only going to take 5 damage here, so that's not really that big of a deal. Bailey will fall to 13. It's not really the scariest board to worry about, so... Polluted Delta for Bailey. He's got a lot of lands. He also has in hand an Astrotoll, which he might try and get down, but he decides not to, it looks like. Looks like he's just going to leave up Snapcaster and Path to Exile, which is also fine. So there's the Snapcaster. That's going to path away probably Shriekmaw. It's the bigger of the two. You also can pretty much never block that, I feel. So yeah. Yeah, acid, the word you're looking for in English is token. The Jeton is token, yeah. Path to exile your Shriekmaw. Yes, fear is the keyword that is relevant on the Shriekmaw. Can only be blocked by black creatures or artifact creatures. So... Will gets a basic forest out of his deck as well. Bailey not in a bad spot here. He only takes 2 points of damage this turn. He falls to 11. And he's managed to path to exile away 2 of Will's threats. That, again, pathing Will's creatures is very, very important because it means that the next Cascade spell doesn't actually get them back. They're just gone forever. End of turn, Bailey will go to 10 by sacrificing that Pluto Delta. He does now need to find, an actual clock, but yeah. He'll get a steam vent, so that gives him access to all 4 of his colors. Red, black, blue, and white. Everything but green. Yeah, you can have 3-color deck, 4-color deck, and 5-color decks if you want. You can have as many colors or as few colors as you wish. Looks like there's a Fatal Push in Bailey's hand, but currently no way to turn it on. So the Fairy Macabre is safe from that. The Fairy Macabre is, of course, a 3-drop. Here's that As Foretold. So Will has in hand right now Violent Outburst and Living End. So really just nothing important. Another attack for 2. I'm a little surprised Billy didn't attack for 2 points of his own damage, but he has to start looking at how he wins this game as well as the issue. So Will play a Bloodstained Mire, it looks like, and then sacrifice it. Yep, you absolutely can. Acid. Mono blue is definitely a deck. You can have mono red, white, green, blue, or black. You can also have mono colorless. The game we saw round 1, if you were watching, I don't know if you were here or not, he was playing no colored mana in his deck. It was all colorless lands because all of his spells cost colorless mana. Godless Shrine for Bailey. Here's an attack for 2. Will's going to fall to 12. Yeah, for the most part, Eldrazi are no colors. Some of them have colors, but why does my clock pause? So timing is wrong right now, unfortunately. I don't know what the actual time is, but so there's As Foretold, by the way. That's what Bailey has in play right now with the 1 counter on it. So right now, once per turn, he's able to cast a 1 or less CMC spell for free with As Foretold. Yeah. Same way as every other card. It's just they sometimes don't require colored mana is all. Martin, what's the clock actually at? Oh, you're not at the table. Can't you tell me? Okay. Okay, so our timer is off here, which is okay. My spotter had to step away from the computer, but that's fine. Not a big issue. Bailey looks like he's thinking about Damnation. Yeah, he is going to do it. Okay, interesting. Okay. Damnation wiped the board. That Stubborn Analysis hand is doing nothing now as well is kind of the issue. Will has more than enough mana to be able to pay for an extra 1. Will's just going to go ahead and untap here. His draw was another land, it looked like. Jeez. Okay. Again, he does have the Cascade spell in his hand, so he would be able to fire it off if he wishes, but he'll only get back right now a Fairy Macabre, which really isn't going to do anything, so at all, for that matter. Bailey picks up a Torrential Gearhulk, though. That's a good one. Right now, it doesn't have any targets. His graveyard currently is only 2 lands, a Snapcaster, and a Damnation, but that's fine. So this could be a spot where it's worth it for Will to fire off his Violent Outburst just because it'll get to kill a land. No, he'll take the 2, so we're going to even the game up at 10 apiece. thanks to the lifelink on the Shambling Vent. Will's draw was, I didn't get a look at it. Street Wraith, and he's hard casting it. Okay, sure. That's a little curious. Blackleaf Cliffs and go. Why would, I don't know. It's weird. Guess you don't put a clock on, so. So Bailey will go ahead and free cast another copy of As Foretold with his first copy of As Foretold. And then he'll pass the turn back. So Will takes his next turn. He found a copy of Beast Within on top of his library. Here's an attack for 3. Bailey's going to go ahead and flash in Torrential Gearhulk. That's not going to matter because the Street Wraith has Swamp Walk and Bailey has a Swamp. This shouldn't be blockable. I'm not sure exactly what happened here, but in terms of... Whoopsies. Nope, that's not how that works. 1 second, guys. I'll be right back. Okay, sorry about that, guys. So, there we go. And the correct time on the clock is that much time. So, sorry, I had to step away for a second because, so what happened there is Street Wraith. There it is there. So show it up. So it's a 3/4 with Swamp Walk, which means that if your opponent or the defending player controls a swamp, it cannot be blocked. So what happened here was Bailey tried to block it, which is not a legal action. So Will is going to be forced to Beast Within his own Street Wraith to get back these cards. It's very important that the block doesn't happen because of this interaction. So I had to run upstairs and stop them there. That's all. Okay, so Will only has currently 1 copy of Living End left in his deck. That's what he's looking for right now. There it is. Stubborn Denial. Okay, Will pay... Oh, no! Bailey currently has in play a creature that cost... Wow! Bailey has in play the Gearhulk to just say, no, this is my counterspell. Get out of my game. Oh, geez, that's... Oh, wow. I didn't even think about that. So what happened there? So Will cast Violent Outburst, which cascaded into Living End. So Cascade says, when you cast this spell, reveal cards from the top of your library until you find a spell with CMC less than this. So less than 3 in this case. The only spell that Will has that costs less than 3 is Living End, which actually costs 0, but it has to be suspended to be cast. So here, I'll show up Living End here as well. And this is a much more confusing deck than most modern decks, but... So there's Living End there. So it has no mana cost. So Living End is black, suspend for 2 black with 3 counters on it. Essentially, what it does is it takes all the creatures in play, puts them in the graveyard. Sorry, what it does first, right? Puts all creatures in the graveyard into exile, and then it puts all creatures in play into the graveyard, and then all creatures that got put into exile this way get put onto the battlefield. So it kind of shifts the battlefield, the graveyard, swaps them back and forth, basically, is what it kind of comes down to. Bailey, though, had Stubborn Denial, which is a single blue counter target non-creature spell unless the controller pays 1. But if you have Ferocious, so if you control a creature with power 4 or greater, you just get to counter the spell instead. Bailey had a 5/6 Torrential Gearhulk in play, which fulfills Ferocious. And because of As Foretold, he was able to just free cast Stubborn Denial from his hand. Totally forgot that would be a thing you could do there. Jeez. That was good. That was good. All right. So, sorry. The game there went to Bailey. Will conceded once Bailey showed him the counterspell. So at that point, because Will only plays 3 copies of Living End and he had one of them in his hand, he wouldn't have been able to get rid of that Gearhulk fast enough that it would have mattered. He would have just died in 2 turns. Bailey attacks twice for 5 and Will dies. The last copy of Living End was stuck in Will's hand, unfortunately. And again, because it has a CMC of 0, unless you're playing one of the expertises, you're not going to be able to cast that spell for free. It has to go through the suspend method of casting, which takes a bit longer and didn't really have the luxury of time that game. All right, so we're going to head to a game 2 here with Bailey up 1-0, which, again, it looked kind of in the favor of Will there, and Bailey just had all the right answers at all the right times. So Will even had to use his own Beast Within on his own Street Wraith to try and get a little more value out of his Living End, and Bailey just, no, sir. That was great. Will can't lose, he has tattoos. That, I assure you, is not correct. Again, if you saw round 1, our Eldrazi player is much more tattooed than Will is, and he also lost. Actually, they drew, so he didn't really lose. I can't say he lost because it was a draw. All right, so into game 2, Will's going to have the play here again. Going to be looking, wow, 2 copies of Living End in his hands. He's going to have to mulligan that right away. You can't start the game with 2 of your namesake cards like that in your hand because you'll never cast them. Yeah, he sure didn't win. You're not wrong. He plays a 1-off cards extra piece. That's. I'm seeing a lot more of that, so it's very likely, but. Okay, so Will has this time a Leyline in play on turn 0. Bailey here, though, has managed to get to turn 3 and get an Ashfold into play. Will, with only 1 land right now, is in a tough spot here. Bailey will just go ahead and free cast Ancestral Visions because that's, a sweet interaction you get with this. Karizev's Expertise Acid is a card that lets you cast a card for free from your hand that costs 3 or that costs 2 or less. So you're able to cast those free spells for free. Okay, Will cycles away Desert Ceradon, and Bailey's going to surgically extract your Ceradons. Get out of here. Get out of my game. Bailey just ruthless here. So Leyland of the Void, Horror of the Broken Land, Beast Within, Deadshot Minotaur, another Horror of the Broken Land, and a Violent Outburst is the hand for Will right now. No, sorry, that's Archfiend of Ifnir. My apologies. Yeah, you typically play a 1 of Expertise, but I guess Will just conceded thinking that he wasn't going to be able to get there, so he figured why bother. So Ricochet Trap is important to take note of. That's the answer to counter spells. Two Ceradons, 3 Ceradons. Should be one more Ceradon in there probably somewhere. Yep, there it is. All the Ceradons are now out of Will's deck. Bailey's going to have a read there of the Ricochet Trap, which is very important. Again, Ricochet Trap, if you're not familiar with what it does, there it is. So 3 in a red, change the target of target spell with a single target. However, if an opponent casts a blue spell this turn, you get to pay red instead of its normal mana cost. So that's very, very good. Essentially, the goal of it is to have a counter spell instead point at Ricochet Trap. Okay, will untap here. Does he have a second land? He does. Does he? He does not. But he did draw a Ricochet Trap. He does have the Violent Outburst, but he's still, again, 2 lands away from that even mattering. Bailey has Stubborn Denial again, which is great, unless... it depends on the deck. It depends on the deck you're trying to go for, Acid. Some decks like being multicolored, some decks like being monocolored. Just comes down to what you want to try and do. As foretold, now with 2 counters on it. And the draw is a Scalding Tarn. There it is. Bailey with a grip full of cards here. So does Will, but Will has been missing land drops here consistently, which is the bigger difference. Cycles away a Deadshot Minotaur. Picks up a Horror of the Broken Land, which he will go ahead and cycle, I imagine. Yes, he will. Still looking for a third land, however. Did he find it? No, he did not. Jeez. That's unfortunate. Yeah, exactly. That's a good answer, Holler. The more colors you play, obviously, the more difficult it becomes to make sure you have the right mana. However, the more colors you play, the more cards you get access to. Mono red is a pretty strong deck. Mono red is very, very aggressive. We had a burn deck on camera earlier, which is essentially mono red. It plays some other colors to get access to more cards, but at its core, it's a mono red deck. I will say, however, if you're going to build mono red, don't build that burn deck. It's not your typical burn deck at all. So Bailey, end of turn, fetched up a Steam Vents for himself into play tap. He's at 17 now. Shouldn't have any issues, really, though. Again, he's just got a handful of cards. Gets to free cast Ancestral Visions again because As Foretold is just great. Okay, we got a bit of an issue here. Looks like Bailey accidentally drew... He went to draw 3 cards, accidentally saw the 4th card down. So it's a simple enough fix. Just talking to the judge right now, explaining exactly what happened. Billy explaining, yeah, I went to draw 3, I accidentally saw the 4th card. I've already drawn 2 for the resolution of the spell. I just need to draw the 3rd card, that's all. Okay, no, it looks like actually Will is saying, I have a response. I want to try to Ricochet trap it instead. Supreme Will, okay. Okay, sure. Interesting. You don't see that very often in Modern, so sure. Scalding turn for Bailey. No. No, Hollier. Do I have a way that I can allow it, though? Give me a second. Give me a sec here, Hollier. Let me see if I can do something for you. Yeah, no, they're not, unfortunately. No, Bill's not trying to cheat at all. No, he just... When you play fast, sometimes you make mistakes. That's all it is. It's not like he's trying to cheat at all. Billy will suspend Ancestral Visions as well, an Ancestral Vision. Beast Within, Billy says no, I'll cast it with this As Foretold. Pay 1 more, it's countered, it's countered. So Bailey will now finish resolving his fetch land. Yeah, like I just don't think Will can do much here. I think he's just in far too much trouble. Getting stuck on land as long as he did, he won't be able to dig himself out of this hole. Billy has 6 mana to Will's 3, and Bailey has just like counter spells galore. Even the Gear Hulk right now is fine, just has a 5/6 because it ensures that any future Stubborn Denials are guaranteed to be counter spells instead of 4 spikes. Down to 3, Foretold up to 4. Snapcaster Mage is the draw. It's just a 2/1, so not a big deal. And Burial Rites has no purpose now. There is no graveyard for Bailey, thanks to Leyline of the Void. Cryptic Command also in hand for Bailey. Wow, like it's just this. Oh, I don't think Will can win this. And if he can, it'll take quite a while. He's got a lot to slog through. Yep. Yeah, that's absolutely correct. That's a good way to look at it. Vampires and werewolves were a thing in Innistrad. Shadows and original Innistrad, so... Here is a Gear Hulk as just a 5/6 with Flash. We're just getting a clock in play. Is Will going to take this opportunity to try and fire off a Violent Outburst? He is, and that's going to get Cryptic Commanded, or at least the living ends get Cryptic Commanded. That's the important part. Cryptic Command. Counter, and I'll draw a card. Okay, so Will decides that he doesn't matter. He's just not going to win this game, which I think is totally fair. He is in a very, very tough spot right now, and he concedes the game. Bailey taking it down in 2, so congratulations to him.